Welcome to the ReFaB Conversations podcast. This podcast is focused on creating space for important conversations about the development of foster care in Bulgaria. My name is Sarah Todorov, and I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Birmingham in the UK, where my research for the last few years has focused on the development of foster care in the context of deinstitutionalization in Bulgaria. In this podcast series, I am joined by colleagues who have between them a wide and rich range of experience of foster care and the deinstitutionalization process, spanning the last 20 or more years. These guests include Galina Biset, founder and CEO of the NGO Equilibrium, Biser Spirov, Senior Technical Advisor at Lumos, and Evgenia Toneva, researcher and child protection specialist at the Know-How Centre for Alternative Care for Children. In this first episode of the podcast, we contextualise the development of foster care in Bulgaria and discuss the challenges which have occurred with trying to reform an institutional care system. We also share experiences about the support needs of foster parents and the important role of foster families in the lives of children with disabilities who are in state care. So, let's jump right in. Why is foster care an important topic to be discussing in Bulgaria today?
Well, I think it's important not only today. This topic was important 25, maybe 30 years ago, when we started to talk for reform of the system, of the childcare system in Bulgaria, the first project for deinstitutionalization of the system, because we all know that this is one very important alternative for children, because children need families to develop very well, not institutions. And unfortunately, for some different reasons, the biological parents sometimes are not able to provide this safety and secure family environment. And in this moment, foster care is a really very important alternative for children to continue to be raised and to be grow up in a family environment, which is, we all know that this is the best possible environment for development of every child. So we have a long history of talking for foster care in Bulgaria, and a lot of projects developed in this field, but somehow still it is important to talk, because in my opinion, foster care is not very well developed, especially when we talk for children with disabilities, and especially when we talk for children with more severe disabilities, multiple disabilities, and complex needs.
I'd like to add to what Bисер has said. Bulgaria underwent a serious reform of child protection and child care. And the large-scale institutions have been closed down, with the exception of 4. However, we still have a number of children living in residential care instead of family care. We have about 200 children in the last 4 baby institutions. We have 3,000 children and young people with disabilities and without disabilities in small group homes. And here I would like to quote the statement of a doctor who is a director of a residential service for severely disabled children in need of permanent medical care, the most difficult group to place in foster care and to provide foster care for. And she says, no child deserves to live without a family.
Okay, so to what has already been said, I would like to add that quite a few researchers have already noted that one of the characteristic features of the Bulgarian DI reform is the over-reliance of residential care solutions as alternatives to the specialized institutions for child care. So because of this over-reliance of the development of these solutions, we have ended up with a lot of small group homes that provide family-like care setting. However, this care setting, although it's much better than the living conditions in the specialized institution for child care, it's not that good as the setting in a real family. So the role that foster care could have served in answering the needs of these children has been somehow underestimated over the time. So we have ended up not only with these residential care facilities, but also with a foster care provision that generally has really narrow scope. What I mean is that foster care, the profile of the foster carers is really narrow, and it didn't extend to children with special needs or other types of children that deserve additional attention and care.
May I also add to the discussion? When I'm looking back over the years of developing foster care, there is a trend that is probably also contributing to the difficulties we have in recruiting foster parents for children with disability. In the old days, foster care was developed under pilot projects of international NGOs. They piloted different models. There was a model using the PRIDE system, the US PRIDE system. There was a model of district development of foster care. Some development was influenced by the Swedish practice of private agencies who recruit and support foster parents. But gradually this diversity, this mixed economy and different models of foster care were all merged into one central way of running the foster care system in Bulgaria, because it was all amalgamated and funded with European funds, supported with European funds, and it was one model fits all. It was regimented. It was developed exclusively through the local authorities and these foster care teams that are placed with the local authorities and managed by the local authorities. The NGOs that used to do foster care were squeezed out. The service providers who used to do foster care as part of their portfolio also were kind of squeezed out, and they were allowed under the new system to provide only trainings and supervisions, but the actual recruitment, management, approval, assessment, and so on lies with the foster care teams and with the state.
Thank you all for your responses to that. So what I'm understanding from you is, while we're talking about foster care and the development of foster care today, foster care is itself not a new phenomenon in Bulgaria. It's something that has got a long history. I think I've read somewhere that the history goes back even to as far as the 1930s. There was some small development of foster care in Bulgaria, and elsewhere in the literature about foster care, it also talks about how historically Bulgarian customs and culture has actually lent itself to foster care because of the way in which people in the olden times wanted to look after people within the community. But unfortunately, we've kind of come away from that in this context, and away from the value that's placed on family for everybody and the need of a family for every single person, and not just what that means in childhood, but also throughout the life course. And that's something that I think we'll touch on in a little while. Why family is important, not just for children when they are children, but as they become adults as well. So what we see in the Bulgarian case is, as Evgenia has pointed out, an over-reliance on residential care. We see a lack of awareness of the inappropriateness of family type care, and the need to develop awareness of how family-based care, so children actually living in families, is really important. And as Bissa mentioned, the fact that children with disabilities, and particularly children with complex disabilities, have been kind of overlooked in the development of foster care. And of course, this is quite tricky. It's not simple. I mean, if it was simple, maybe it would have been, finalized many years ago. It's quite a difficult process, and we're not going to underplay that today. But what would be really good is to talk about some ways to overcome these difficulties in the development of foster care for this group of children. And I really like, Galina, how you touched on this idea that no child deserves to live without a family. And I wonder if you can just speak to that any more through your experience, Galina, of placing children in families. What have you seen over the years has been the benefit of this?
When we were engaged with closing baby institutions back in 2012, 2013, we inevitably had a group of children who were with disabilities, with cerebral palsy, with unidentified developmental delays, for whom we had no other placements, and it was not possible to reintegrate them, reunite them with their families. So we looked at foster parents, established foster parents who have had some experience with fostering typical children. And we talked to them and we explained the difficulties, and we asked them to be partners and to consider welcoming these children into their families because of their experience, because of their commitment to children. So they met with the children with disabilities, and each one of them took the child that was offered to them without any hesitation. They were made to feel equal partners in the DI process, champions for children's rights to live in a family. They had the opportunity to speak about their experiences and how they coped and why they made this decision. But beside that, the development of the children when moved from the baby institution to these foster families was beyond comprehension. And we have also observed this with children with permanent medical needs, with profound and complex disabilities, for whom we have tried to take care in a residential setting. Actually, when they get adopted internationally at this point in time, their development goes beyond our bravest expectations. Children who are dying actually in residential care flourish when they're adopted and live in a proper family and have this proper individual attention and the sense of being loved, being wanted, which is more important than just being fed, even tube fed, even fed by a drip, because they don't digest food, they don't grow and thrive, and they develop marasms in the residential settings.
Yeah, I just have to say, Galia, your experience was really reflected in the research that I conducted with foster parents, in that the participants in the study also explained how at first, when the children with disabilities came to them, they were very focused on the medical needs of the children. And one participant, in fact, said they were so overwhelmed by all the diagnoses, the medicine, the appointments, the scheduled operations, it became too much. This hyper focus on like the medicalization of children with disabilities. And in the participants' words, they said, at one point, we just decided to stop focusing on all these problems and just focus on the fact that this was a child who needed a family. And when they actually took their focus, I mean, that maybe is a bit controversial, they took their focus off all these medical issues, and they saw the child actually just started to get better because everybody kind of calmed down around them and just focused on them as a child, not this person who needed all these interventions and like treatment and to be fixed, but just like a child as they were, with intrinsic value and worth. So that's a really important point to raise. I don't know if anybody else has something else to add on that.
Yeah, I just maybe will not say I completely agree with Galia, but just maybe this is one of the reasons for this challenging of developing foster care, because still in Bulgaria, I think that the medical approach to children with disabilities is very strong. And as you said, Sarah, this is really sometimes people who are candidate to become foster families, they just give up because they are really bombarded from the services with all these diagnoses, which sometimes means nothing for them. And somehow that this child is very fragile. You don't have to touch, or if you touch, you have to be very careful that the child is very disabled. And of course, when we are talking for children with more complex needs, multiple disabilities, sometimes health needs, it is important to be aware of this. But actually, when we are talking for child development, even for children with severe disabilities, we are talking for human and social approach, that to see the child, not disability, the focus to be on the child, not on disability. And when you take care for a child, to take care for the child, not for disability. And this is really very, very important, that children in family, absolutely, I just want to emphasize once again what Gala said, that children with very severe disabilities who are really in very bad conditions, if they are placed in a good family, they have incredible progress, and the expectation that they will die soon or they will be very not develop well, just it's the other way around. Because really this is important to pay attention to the child, and to take care from social, to engage with him and to communicate as much as possible. So not just to feed the child with the bottle, put the bottle and the child just to feeding, but to communicate, to talk with him, to sing a song, read stories. And some children with severe disability, they just don't have access to this very fundamental and human needs. Some other person to communicate, to be with you just because to be with you, not to do something with you, to work, to rehabilitate, to treat. And I think this is really important field of foster care, the support which foster families receive, because it is not easy to take care for a child with disability, especially if it's a more complex case, and these families need support. We also with Lumos, I have really very strong practical experience, because one of the children, maybe the most the child with most severe disability in one institution in Bulgaria. This institution is closed now already 7 years, I think. The child was placed in foster mother to be more concrete. And as organization, we don't want to replace the social services, the child protection department. We just wanted to fill the gaps, supporting this foster mother. And I saw that these things are not covered somehow from the system, but they are very important to support the foster mother, to talk with her, just to talk as a human being, to share their worries or that's tired, to support sometimes these children with more severe disabilities. They need sometimes treatment For example, I remember now the dentist care, which is not many dentists want to treat children with more severe disabilities. There are several places, as far as I know, and so to go to this place, which is in another town, it's very important support for this lady and for the child. But sometimes this is not very well provided from the system, and I think that this is one of the big issue regarding foster care, that somehow the perception of the system is that we place the child in a foster family and it's over. The case is not closed, but yeah, the child is in the family, so the family will take care. And the system forgot sometimes that the support of the foster families during the time when they take care for the children is very, very important to have successful and effective foster care.
I would like to add something to this. It's a matter of fact that many, I would say most of the children that are currently placed in foster care in Bulgaria have some learning difficulties or developmental issues or some problems related to their behavior, etc. So despite these problems, the foster parents deal with the situation and actually manage to save these children and to give them life opportunities, to open new spaces, new paths for them. But for some reasons, these facts are not well known. The community, the society, I would say, is not aware of these difficulties that the foster parents are dealing with in their everyday situation. So my opinion is that it takes it looks quite difficult, but it will take just a few steps further to move from these really significant issues that the foster care is being able to deal with, and to provide foster care to more disabled children in Bulgaria today.
So we've highlighted here some important issues and challenges related to the development of foster care, both in terms of the perception of the child, the way that children with disabilities are seen, and often seen as more seen as their disability than as a child, first and foremost. And then secondly, we've talked about the need for ongoing support, not just placement in a foster family, okay, done, but the need for this ongoing help, training or awareness of the challenges that foster parents face. Thank you for watching or listening to this first episode of the ReFaB Conversations podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we look in more detail at good examples of support practices for foster parents and biological parents of children with disabilities in Bulgaria.